जैसा कि हमारी कॉल फॉर पेपर्स में भी ये हमने अनाउंस किया था, Social Protection Resource Center was established in May 2020, around 5.5 years ago. तो हम सोशल प्रोटेक्शन के तमाम एस्पेक्ट्स पे काम करते हैं, including our dedicated work on disability and elderly care also. जो क्लासिकल सोशल प्रोटेक्शन के इनकम ट्रांसफर्स के वो इश्यूज भी डाउन द लाइन हमारे बोर्ड ने, विच इज चेयर्ड बाय डॉक्टर आलिया हाशमी, जो कि बहुत एमिनेंट लेबर इकोनॉमिस्ट हैं, पाकिस्तान की फॉर्मर डीन सोशल साइंसेज कायदर यूनिवर्सिटी, और डॉक्टर वाजिद एंड डॉक्टर सलमान, हम सब का ये ख्याल था कि सोशल प्रोटेक्शन की टर्म जो है के साथ प्रोसेस करके, तो अब हमारा जो है जो थिंक टैंक है उसका नाम जो है सोशल पॉलिसी रिसोर्स सेंटर जो है वो हो गया है। उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में हम हर साल अपनी एनुअल कॉन्फ्रेंस करते हैं, तो ये हमारी 5th सोशल पॉलिसी कॉन्फ्रेंस है, और इस दफ़ा जो है वो वी आर डूइंग दिस कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑन सोशल पॉलिसी कंसिडरेशंस फॉर 11th नेशनल फाइनेंस कमीशन. We all know that NFC award determines the distribution of federally collected taxes among the federal government and provincial governments, which directly impacts the design and implementation of social policies, primarily implemented by the provinces. Given Pakistan's ongoing challenges such as limited social spending and regional inequalities, the conference aims to provide fresh, evidence-based insights to better align with NFC process with future social policy priorities. Now, in this general backdrop, for us, basically this conference, the first of its kind, as I have already said, we are going to sit with all the provinces and possibly with the committees which the government has established in order to prepare for the announcement of the 11th NFC. For us, this is basically about the financing of social policy in Pakistan. Now, that perspective is motivating us. Now, I would be very happily introducing the guests that we have with us. I'm very thankful to all our dear colleagues who have consented to be not only to be the discussants of the scientific papers, 4 scientific papers that we are going to present. I've requested all the guest speakers, that's Dr. Aliya Hashmi, Mr. Mohsin Chandna, Ms. Shirin Sadozai, and Dr. Mahmood Khalid, to give their own take on the NFC process, major issues, and the way forward. So it's my pleasure to start introducing the guests with Dr. Aliya Hashmi. Hajra slides, Hanji. Dr. Aliya Hashmi, who happens to be the CEO of our own think tank, that Social Policy Resource Center. As I said earlier, she is the former Dean Faculty of Social Sciences at Hidayat University, an eminent labor economist. I was with her in the committee which was established by the previous government on implementation of the recommendation of labor expert group, again headed by her, to bring in the informal economy workers in the social protection net. That missing middle is still not covered, and I hope Dr. Hashmi will talk about that. Dr. Aliya Hashmi Khan is a professor of economics, retired, and former director, School of Economics, Quaid-e-Azam University. She has served on the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, the State Bank of Pakistan Monetary Policy Committee, and various national and international committees on labor, social protection, and gender issues. Dr. Khan has advised organizations including ILO, UNDP, UN Women, World Bank, and GIZ, and contributed to research on women's social and economic empowerment in Pakistan. She was awarded the Presidential Medal Muhtarma Fatima Jinnah 2010 for her services in higher education and women's economic empowerment. Dr. Aliya, thank you very much. And above all, she has been guiding us throughout this journey for the last 5.5 years, and we're very happy to have with us today also. Our next guest is Mr. Mohsin Chandna. He is currently DG Det, Ministry of Finance. He's a former Federal Secretary of two important ministries, that is Ministry of IT and Telecom, and a ministry which is very relevant today, that is Ministry of Interprovincial Coordination. Mr. Chandna is a retired BS-22 officer of the Pakistan Administrative Service and former Federal Secretary, as I said earlier. He has over 34 years of government service, including roles as Secretary of the Ministry of IT and IPC, Special Secretary Finance, and as Special Secretary Finance also, he was dealing with debt and budget wing and economic minister at the Embassy of Pakistan in Washington. He holds a master of public policy from the University of Chicago and an MBA from IBA Karachi, and has extensive teaching experience at IPA. A unique feature of Mohsin Bhai is that he loves teaching and training, and conceptually is very strong. Mr. Mohsin, very happy to have you around. Our next speaker.
Thank you, boss. Thank you.
God bless you. Our next speaker is Ms. Shirin Sadozai, again a colleague who is with us in Social Protection Resource Center, now Social Policy Resource Center, an eminent expert on social security systems. She currently is Senior Associate at Development Pathways Limited, UK. Ms. Shirin has worked on delivery reform, policy reform, and payment solutions in social protection in different countries and regions. Currently, she is leading the Social Protection Unit at the Government of Kiribati, supported by our DFAT project. She has over 10 years of experience in program management, financial management, and governance, environment, education, and gender. Thank you very much, Ms. Shirin, for being available today and taking keen interest in our work always. Our next speaker, the last speaker, in fact, our friend, Dr. Mahmood Khalid, former PIDE or current PIDE, one would say, an eminent economist. He is currently Director, Economic Analysis, Tax Policy Office, Ministry of Finance, not Commerce, Ministry of Finance, Government of Pakistan. Dr. Mahmood Khalid is previously served as Senior Research Economist and Executive Director at PIDE, and has led departments in health economics and fiscal policy. His research focuses on public finance, fiscal policy, and health economics. Dr. Khalid holds a PhD in economics from PIDE and is a member of the Pakistan Society of Development Economists, and has published over 20 research papers and co-authored many books. I started personally knowing Dr. Mahmood since quite some time, a very serious, sincere economist. Thank you very much, Dr. Mahmood, for being with us. जी आगे अब हम चलते हैं तो we have 4 presenters with us. Can I have the next slide, please? Mr. Hidayatullah Khan, he has contributed a scientific paper to the conference, which title is National Finance Commission and Inclusive Social Development, a critical review of effectiveness of NFC in the post-18th Amendment era. Mr. Hidayatullah Khan is an associate professor, Department of Economics, Namal. Dr. Hidayat, welcome, and thank you very much for being part of this process. I have heard very good things about your scientific paper from the reviewers. And we have Mr. Zulfiqar Ali Mir with us, who has contributed another scientific paper titled Challenges of Social Policy Financing in Pakistan, Evidence from NFC Allocations and Provincial Expenditure Patterns. Thank you very much, Mir Saab. Mir Saab is a researcher, econometrics and quantitative finance, and is currently affiliated with Turing Incorporation, USA. Our next scientific paper has been contributed by my friend Mr. Awais. He is a development consultant, affiliated these days, if I'm not wrong, with the Planning Commission. He has contributed a paper titled Inclusive, Incentive-Based and Integrated Tax Framework for Pakistan. Thank you very much, Wes, for contributing a nice paper and being present today also. And last but not the least, Ms. Safia Minhaj, Assistant Professor, Department of Economics, University of Karachi. Her paper, which we are going to now hear from her, is titled Vertical Fiscal Imbalances, Fiscal Federalism, and Debt Sustainability in Pakistan. So I thank all the speakers and the authors. We start with Ms. Safia Minhaj. The order of presentations is that we first start with her paper, and then we would request Mr. Mohsin Chandna to give his critical review of the paper. As shared earlier, I've requested Mr. Chandna and other speakers to talk about NFC. Mr. Chandna has huge experience and work on NFC, and we would be very happy and lucky to hear him also. So it's over to you, Ms. Safia.
Okay, Assalamualaikum. Uh, my research topic already discussed here. My research question is, to what extent do vertical fiscal imbalance in Pakistan's federal structure contribute to the rising domestic and foreign debt burden? Because basically, why provincial governments rely more on federal government, which is based on the rising the domestic burden, and what's the reasons of. Basically, the main theme of this paper is to find out why we are relying more on domestic as well as foreign burden. The supporting questions of this research paper, uh, how has the magnitude of vertical fiscal imbalance evolved in Pakistan since the 18th Amendment? Does VFI, vertical fiscal imbalance, exert differential impacts on domestic versus foreign debt accumulation? And then what the lessons we learned from the South Asian experiences, such as India, Sri Lanka, and Nepal? The main objectives, there are three main objectives of my research paper. Number one, first to construct the fiscal imbalance index. Second one is to empirically test the relationship between the impact of the VFI, or the role of the VFI with domestic and foreign debt, and the finally social South Asian experience comparative analysis. हिस्ट्री ऑफ स्ट्रक्चर को मैं छोड़ देती हूँ. When I constructed the vertical fiscal imbalance, I realized that values are more than 6.69 and near to 8. अच्छा मैं जरा सा पहले इसको ओपन कर लूं तब मैं आपको सही से बता सकूंगी. I'm not okay. The formula for calculating or constructing the VFI is 1 minus provincial own revenues divided by the provincial expenditures. Or from 1995 to 2025, uh, highest value is remain more than lowest value 0.69 and the highest value around 0.85. So it means there is a high reliance on the federal resources. It should be VF5 should be remain point 2, point 3. It's acceptable, but but it means no reliance on the federal government. तो ये तो basically if ये यहाँ पर होगी zero, if it is zero, then it means no imbalance. But if it's point 2 to point 4, we say that there is a moderate level of imbalance. But if it is point 0.5, it just means it's high reliance on federal government, high imbalance. So it means the results showed that there is a high reliance on federal government or imbalance. There is a high fiscal imbalance. I try to check the domestic debt and external debt. We use two models. Uh, for domestic debt, VFI, GDP, real GDP, inflation, and fiscal balance. And for external debt market, VFI, exchange rate, current account deficit, and foreign reserves. अच्छा, तमाम वेरिएबल जो थे वो फर्स्ट डिफरेंस पे स्टेशनरी हुए थे, तो इसलिए हमने यूज किया था जॉनसन को इंटीग्रेशन टेस्ट, फिर फुल मॉडिफाइड टेस्ट। तो यहाँ से जो हमने FMOLS के जो रिजल्ट्स आए हैं उससे हमें ये पता चलता है कि VFI हाईली सिग्निफिकेंट है। टी स्टैटिस्टिक्स और प्रोबेबिलिटी ये शो करती है कि 5% से कम हमारा जो है वो प्रोबेबिलिटी है। तो इसका मतलब ये कि इन्फ्लेशन, VFI का, रियल GDP, ये तीन वेरिएबल जो हैं वो हाईली इन्फ्लुएंस करते हैं आपके डोमेस्टिक डेट को, कि ये बहुत बड़ी वजह होती है हमारे डोमेस्टिक डेट में। जबकि ये मेरे लिए बड़ा अजीब था कि ये फिस्कल बैलेंस जो था वो नेगेटिव आ रहा था। इसकी मैं, क्योंकि मैं इसको नहीं कर सकी कि इसकी वजह क्या होगी, नेगेटिव रीजन, क्योंकि बड़ी अजीब सी वेरी, लेकिन ये तीन हमारे सपोर्टिव वेरिएबल्स थे। इसका मतलब है कि यहाँ पे मुझे सजेशन मिलेगी कि मैं इसको किस तरह कर सकूं, इसकी इम्प्रूवमेंट पॉसिबल है। नंबर, तो ये होता है कि हमारे यहाँ फिजिकल इम्बैलेंस का बहुत रोल है डोमेस्टिक। फिर एरर करेक्शन में भी ये चीज आ, डोमेस्टिक डेट के अंदर फिजिकल इम्बैलेंस का हाई रेट है। फिर जो हमारा एक्सटर्नल मॉडल था, एक्सटर्नल मॉडल में कैट जो था वो फर्स्ट लेवल पे स्टेशनरी था, और बाकी सारे हमारे फर्स्ट डिफरेंस पे थे। तो यहाँ पे भी जो हमारे वेरिएबल आए हैं वो ARDL हमने यूज किया, और ARDL में VFI का जो रोल आया वो 10% से अबव था। इसका मतलब है कि VFI का वर्टिकल फिजिकल इम्बैलेंस का एक्सटर्नल डेट में रोल नहीं है, बल्कि इसका रोल, इसका जो वर्टिकल इम्बैलेंस का रोल नहीं है। इसका मतलब है कि एक्सटर्नल डेट में फिजिकल इम्बैलेंस नहीं काउंट हो रहा, बल्कि इससे ज्यादा हमारा जो है करंट अकाउंट है, करंट, और आपका जो डिफरेंस है, फर्स्ट डिफरेंस पे लैग के साथ हमारी फॉरेन रिजर्व्स, उनका इम्पैक्ट आ रहा है। और खुद लैग जो आ रहा है वो एक्सटर्नल डेट का है, कि जो हम बाद में पेमेंट कर रहे होते हैं उसकी वजह से जो जिसको हम कहते हैं कि लोन रिटायरमेंट, उसका बहुत बड़ा इम्पैक्ट है हमारे रिसर्च में। और इसमें जो एक बहुत बड़ी मेरे पेपर की जो लिमिटेशन है वो ये है कि इसके अंदर जो डोनर एजेंसीज प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं वो यूज, उसको मैं नहीं ले सकी हूँ टाइम की कमी की वजह से। अगर हम उसको लेते तो ज्यादा बेहतर इम्पैक्ट आता, कि डोनर एजेंसी से या जो हम प्रोजेक्ट एड लेते हैं उसका बहुत बड़ा रोल है। इसका मतलब है कि डोमेस्टिक जो इम्बैलेंसेस है, ये प्रोविंशियल रिलायंस ऑन फेडरल गवर्नमेंट है, उसका इम्पैक्ट नहीं आ रहा लेने पे। फिर अगर हम साउथ एशियन एक्सपीरियंस को देखते हैं, इंडिया का बड़ा पॉजिटिव इम्पैक्ट आया, और उन्होंने ओपननेस दी है पब्लिक को, अपनी प्रोविंसेस को, कि वो टैक्सेस को कलेक्ट करें, जिसकी वजह से वहां उन्होंने अपने पहले लॉ में चेंज की, अपने एक्ट लेकर आए, जिसकी वजह से उनकी जो फिजिकल परफॉर्मेंस है वो इम्प्रूव हुई है। और उनका डेट टू GDP रेशियो जो है वो डिक्लाइन हुआ है। तो हम इंडिया से ये वाला चीज ले सकते हैं कि हमें जो है पॉलिटिकल पॉपुलिज्म की तरफ जाने के लिए जरूरी है कि हम स्ट्रिक्ट अपने लॉस ना लेकर आए, बल्कि हम उस तरह से रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बढ़ाएं, और कि जो फेड प्रोविंशियल गवर्नमेंट है वो बेहतर रोल प्ले कर सकें और ज्यादा परफॉर्म कर सकें, रेवेन्यू जनरेट करने के लिए सेल्फ रिलायंस की तरफ आए। सिल्क जो श्रीलंकन था एक्सपीरियंस हुआ, उसके अंदर उनकी सक्सेस जो थी वो कम थी। उसकी वजह क्या थी, कि उन्होंने सेंट्रलाइज, इसको सेंट्रल ट्रांसफर तो किया था, लेकिन डिपेंडेंसी जो थी वो मेंटेन की हुई थी, कि आप टैक्सेस तो जमा करें लेकिन आपके पास जो डिपेंडेंसी है वो ज्यादा रखी हुई थी, जिसकी वजह से वो रिजल्ट्स हमें नहीं मिले। तो एक तरफ तो ये है कि अगर गवर्नमेंट को हमें फिजिकल फेडरलिज्म की तरफ जाना है, तो उसके लिए जरूरी है कि आपको ओपननेस दें कि प्रोविंसेस अपने रिसोर्सेज को बेहतर तौर पे खुद यूज करें और जनरेट कर सकें। नेपाल में जो हमारे पास आया था, नेपाल से जो हमने ये सीखा था कि आपको कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग होना बड़ा जरूरी है, कि फेडरल को आप ओपननेस दे दें कि वो अपने रेवेन्यू जनरेट करें, लेकिन कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग ना हो, उनको वो तरीक़ेकार ही ना पता हो कि किस तरह से उनकी एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव कैपेसिटी बड़ी वीक हो। तो पहले बड़ी जरूरी है कि उनकी परफॉर्मेंस को इम्प्रूव करने के लिए कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग की जाए, सेम एज बांग्लादेश, कि वहां पे भी बांग्लादेश का, कि वहां पे आप लोकल जो है ना, लोकल लेवल पे कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग भी दें और उनको ऑटोनॉमी भी दें। तो ओवरऑल ये कंक्लूजन था कि VFI जो वर्टिकल इम्बैलेंस है उसका इतना रोल नहीं है जितना हमारे एक्सटर्नल बर्डन में लेकिन हमारे डोमेस्टिक बर्डन, डोमेस्टिक डेट जो है वो वीएफआई की वजह से बहुत ज्यादा है। तो गवर्नमेंट को ये देखना चाहिए अच्छा, मैंने इसके ऊपर एक और आखिर में ये कैलकुलेट किया था कि वो रिसोर्सेज, वो टैक्सेस वो जो फेडरल गवर्नमेंट ट्रांसफर करती है, अगर मैं उसको ऐड करके वीएफआई कैलकुलेट करूं तो वैल्यू जो इंडेक्स आया था वो लेस देन 2 और 0.2 और 1 के दरमियान था। तो मैं ये समझती हूँ कि अगर हम उसको डायरेक्टली वो टैक्सेस जो फेडरल कलेक्ट करके वो प्रोविंसेस को देती है, अगर वो डायरेक्टली प्रोविंसेस खुद कलेक्ट करें तो वीएफआई का कम हो सकता है और हमारा टैक्स बर्डन भी कम हो जाएगा। थैंक यू।
जी, थैंक यू वेरी मच मिस मिनहाज। जी मोहसिन साहब, इट्स ओवर टू यू,
सर इसमें
यू हैव टू लीव ऑल्सो।
देखिए,
जी
मैं बहुत ही फ्रैंकली एंड ओपनली आपसे अपने कुछ थोड़े से पॉइंट्स हैं वो दे देता हूँ।
जी
पहली बात
श्योर।
तो ये कि जो पेपर का टाइटल है फिस्कल इम्बैलेंस एंड डेट सस्टेनेबिलिटी, ठीक है, इसमें मुझे पूरे पेपर में कहीं भी कोई फिस्कल के नंबर नहीं मिले। जो मेरा एक आइडिया था, मैं बड़ा एक्साइटेड था इस पेपर को लेके, बिकॉज आई एम डीजी
ठीक है।
डेट। तो मैं इसको देखना चाह रहा था कि इसमें कितने मेरे लिए क्या है इस पेपर में। तो
ठीक है।
मेरे लिए इस पेपर में कुछ भी नहीं था, क्योंकि इसमें कोई
सही है।
नंबर्स नहीं थे। डेट, फिजिकल, आपका बजट डेफिसिट कितना है, रेवेन्यू डेफिसिट कितना है, आपका इंटरेस्ट एक्सपेंस कितना है, कि इंटरेस्ट रेट का और इंटरेस्ट एक्सपेंस की क्या रिलेशन आ रही है, वगैरह वगैरह कुछ भी नहीं था। ठीक है।
ठीक है।
नंबर टू, इसमें डेट के नंबर्स भी नहीं है पूरे पेपर में। एक जगह एक पासिंग रेफरेंस है कि 54 ट्रिलियन जो है वो डोमेस्टिक डेट है और 26 ट्रिलियन जो है वो एक्सटर्नल डेट है। राइट।
ठीक है।
तो
ठीक है।
दिस इज द फर्स्ट ऑब्जर्वेशन। तो इसको अगर आप टेबल डालें ना, मतलब आप, आई मीन, सिंस इट इज रिलेटेड टू सेवेंथ एनएफसी अवार्ड, तो मेरी तो ख्वाहिश ये होगी कि इसमें सेवेंथ एनएफसी अवार्ड से पहले के 5 साल और सेवेंथ एनएफसी अवार्ड के बाद के, खास तौर से ये जो करंट 5 साल है, लास्ट फाइव
ठीक
ईयर्स
है।
है, तो आपको देख के पता लगेगा कि एनएफसी अवार्ड से पहले डेट कितना था। जैसे
ठीक। मैं इसका टेबल डाल दूं यानी कि इसमें।
जी 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 जी, बिल्कुल।
बिल्कुल गुड।
आपके पास डेट के, इंटरेस्ट एक्सपेंस के और फिजिकल डेफिसिट के नंबर्स होने चाहिए। ठीक है।
ठीक है।
एक
गुड।
बात हो गई। तो दूसरी बात ये, अभी आपने खुद भी कहा और अभी मेरा इंप्रेशन भी एग्जैक्टली यही था, मैंने लिख के भी कन्वे किया था, कि आपके आर्टिकल को पढ़ के लग रहा है कि प्रोविंसेस वांट टू कलेक्ट टैक्स बट दे डोंट हैव एवेन्यूज, जिसकी
जी।
वजह से फिजिकल इम्बैलेंस आ रहा है, वर्टिकल फिजिकल इम्बैलेंस आ रहा है,
हम्म।
वीएफआई
हम्म।
जिसकी आपने बात की है।
हम्म।
ये इंप्रेशन मुझे पढ़ के भी लगा, और आपने अभी खुद जब अपनी जो प्रेजेंटेशन दी उसमें भी आपने नैरेटिव भी यही बिल्ड हो रहा है। अनफॉर्चुनेटली मैं खुद एडिशनल सेक्रेटरी फाइनेंस रहा हूँ प्रोविंस में भी, और मैं यहाँ भी स्पेशल सेक्रेटरी फाइनेंस था। प्रोविंसेस तो टैक्स कलेक्ट ही नहीं कर रहे।
वही।
प्रोविंसेस जो है उनके पास एक मेजर टैक्स है जो एग्रीकल्चर है। ठीक है।
हम्म।
तो
जी।
टैक्स ऑन एग्रीकल्चर इज जीरो।
जी।
देयर हैज बीन अ willful resistance।
हम्म।
2013 में जो चेयरमैन एबीआर थे, उन्होंने कहा, हमने एक इनिशिएटिव लिया और हमने कहा कि जो भी आदमी अपने इनकम टैक्स रिटर्न में लिखेगा कि मेरी एग्रीकल्चरल इनकम से 1 करोड़ रुपए है, एंड इट इज
ठीक
नॉट
है।
टैक्सेबल, बिकॉज
हम्म।
एग्रीकल्चर इज नॉट टैक्सेबल, तो आप इसको प्रोविंस से वेरीफाई करा के लाएं कि आपका 1 करोड़ रुपए का, आपकी 1 करोड़ रुपए की एग्रीकल्चरल इनकम बनती थी। ठीक है।
ठीक है।
एंड ही सेड कि जी, आई फेल्ड बिकॉज प्रोविंसेस सेड कि जी ये प्रोविंशियल ऑटोनॉमी के खिलाफ है, आप मुझे नहीं पूछ सकते मैंने वहां इनकम कितनी कोट की है। फिर ये जो अभी
सही है।
आईएमएफ के अभी जो आईएमएफ के साथ लेटेस्ट इस वक्त जब मैं और आप बात कर रहे हैं, तो
हम्म।
आईएमएफ इज सेइंग कि आपने जो फिस्कल पैक्ट किया है बिटवीन प्रोविंसेस एंड फेडरेशन, जिसमें यह है कि उन्होंने एग्रीकल्चर टैक्स लगाना है और उसको कलेक्ट करना है। ठीक है।
जी। जी।
उसमें भी प्रोग्रेस वर्चुअली जीरो है। ठीक है।
सही है।
सो इतना आसान नहीं है। मैं आपकी जगह होता ना, तो मैं सिर्फ ये जो सूबे हैं, अगेन मेरे पास टेबल है, अगर आप कहें मैं अभी भी आपको दिखा सकता हूं कि मैडम आयशा गौस पाशा का पेपर है, जिसमें उन्होंने बिफोर एनएफसी अवार्ड कहा कि जी 4 सूबे मिलके 0.5% ऑफ जीडीपी टैक्स नहीं कलेक्ट कर रहे,
हम्म।
और अभी भी 4 सूबे मिलके 1% ऑफ जीडीपी कलेक्ट नहीं कर रहे, जबकि उसमें मोर देन 50% जो है वो सेल्स टैक्स ऑन सर्विसेज है, विच वॉज डिवॉल्व फ्रॉम फेडरेशन। वो क्या फेडरल एक्साइज मोड में होता था, वो प्रोविंसेस के पास आ गया। तो प्रोविंसेस जो है वो जो सेल्स टैक्स ऑन सर्विसेज है, वो बेसिकली इट्स अ विद होल्डिंग टैक्स टाइप ऑफ अ थिंग। तो वो वहां से उनका 50% प्रोविंशियल गवर्नमेंट के, चारों प्रोविंशियल गवर्नमेंट के जो 50% टैक्स है वो वहां से आ रहे हैं, ठीक है। दिस इज माय थर्ड कमेंट। आप इसकी और इसके बाद की अगर लेंगे ना, अगर आप कहें, अभी आपको टैक्स टू जीडीपी रेशियो दिखा देता हूँ पिछले 20 साल का। चौथा पॉइंट जो है वो ये है कि आप ओन सोर्स रेवेन्यू जो है सूबों का, कम से कम सिंध और पंजाब का ले ले।
हाँ,
मिसाल से अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं, मैं आपसे, आपने इतना काम किया, आप बताइए कि कौन से प्रोविंशियल टैक्सेस हैं, बताइए।
वही आपके पास, आपने एग्रीकल्चर पे है, तीन तीन
एग्रीकल्चर में
टैक्स है
जीरो
इनके
है।
ऊपर। हाँ,
और
दो
बताइए
या तीन
एग्रीकल्चर।
टैक्स है। अब तो इनके पास सेल्स टैक्स भी चला गया है
नहीं नहीं,
जो है।
अभी सेल टैक्स नहीं किया। आप और बताइए कौन सा ऐसा टैक्स है जो सूबे कलेक्ट
ये
कर रहे
वो
हैं।
थी जमीनों से रिलेटेड जो होते हैं ना
देखिए,
इनके।
नहीं मैडम, इसको आप देखें
नहीं नहीं,
जाके,
मैं
देखिए।
सॉरी, मेरे पास पूरा याद, ये लिखा हुआ है मेरे पास, तीन इनके
तो ये टेबल
शेयर।
बनाए ना, ये पेपर में डाले ना, ताकि
अच्छा
लोग देख सके कि आपने नंबर्स कहाँ से लिए हैं, ठीक है।
अच्छा, ठीक है ठीक
इनका
है।
जो, इनका सबसे बड़ा जो होता है
मेन
वो
तीन
स्टैम्प,
सोर्सेज हैं
स्टैम्प
इनके
ड्यूटी
टैक्स।
है, रेवेन्यू है,
हाँ।
होटल टैक्स है, प्रोफेशनल टैक्स है, ठीक है।
हम्म।
ये सारी चीजें हैं। आखिरी पॉइंट ये है कि इसको जरा सा आप पेपर को प्लीज प्रूफ रीड करवा लीजिएगा, इसमें बहुत सारे टाइपोस थे, ठीक है।
ठीक है।
और आपकी जो पेपर है उसमें आप एक दफा देखिएगा कि आपने वर्टिकल फिस्कल इम्बैलेंस को कितनी दफा रिपीट किया है। आई
बहुत
मीन इट्स
दफा।
ऑलमोस्ट लाइक 50, ओवर 50 टाइम्स। तो
यस।
थोड़ा सा इसको ब्रॉडन करें
नहीं, इसको
अपना
करना था
होराइजन।
मुझ मैं तो वेट
अच्छा,
कर रही थी कि कमेंट
दूसरी,
आके
जी
मैं
जी
खुद
जी,
किसको सही करूं।
अब आ जाते हैं दूसरी बात। देखिए, बात यह है कि अगर आप इस पे इतना अच्छा काम कर रही हैं तो आप एक काम और कीजिएगा, और वो ये कि जब बिफोर 2001, जिस वक्त
हम्म।
सूबों के पास जो शेयर जाता था वर्टिकल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन में, वो 37% था और फेडरेशन के पास 63% था। उसके
ठीक है।
बाद शौकत अजीज साहब के ज़माने में जब प्रेसिडेंट का, परवेज मुशर्रफ साहब का चीफ एग्जीक्यूटिव ऑर्डर आया, तो
हम्म।
उन्होंने हॉरिजॉन्टल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन को नहीं छेड़ा, लेकिन
जी।
उन्होंने कहा कि जी, जो वर्टिकल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन है वो 42% एंड 43% एंड 44%, हर साल एक परसेंट बढ़ती जाएगी, और लास्ट ईयर इट विल बी 47% वर्सेस 53%।
ठीक है।
बट देन वो लास्ट ईयर जो था वो रिप्लेस हो गया, और उसी साल 7th एनएफसी अवार्ड आ गया, और जब 7th एनएफसी अवार्ड आया तो वो 46% जो था, जो फेडरेशन का
हम्म।
था,
हम्म।
सॉरी, जो सूबों के पास जाना था, वो 46 से बढ़ के 57.5 हो गया। वो 2 साल में हुआ था। पहले साल 56 था, दूसरे साल 57.5 था। तो जरा सा ये नंबर्स जो है, आप ये मेहरबानी करके जरा देख लीजिएगा, ठीक है।
ठीक है।
इनको नंबर देखें और उसके साथ इनके बजट डेफिसिट निकालें कि जी, हर हर पासिंग ईयर के साथ फेडरल गवर्नमेंट
हम्म।
को, जब उनके पास उनके जो रेवेन्यूज हैं वो कम हो गए, 46% की जगह, सॉरी 54% की जगह 42.5% हो गए, 11.5% कम हो गए। हफीज शेख साहब कहा करते थे कि मुझे 42%, 42.5 ना गिने, आप इसमें
हम्म।
से पहले फाटा निकाल दीजिए, इसमें से आप जो है वो जीबी निकाल दें और एजे के निकाल दें, तो रफली हम 41% पे रह जाते हैं। तो 41% रेवेन्यू से हर साल फिजिकल डेफिसिट बढ़ रहा है। तो जब फिजिकल
जी।
डेफिसिट बढ़ा है तो उसकी वजह से डोमेस्टिक डेट स्टॉक, डोमेस्टिक और एक्सटर्नल डेट स्टॉक भी बहुत बढ़ गया है। उसके बाद
जी।
इसका आपने एक बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं मेंशन किया, वो डिवैल्यूएशन का इम्पैक्ट है कि
हम्म।
ये जो आपका
करेंसी।
26 ट्रिलियन है जी, ये जो आपका
जी।
26 ट्रिलियन है,
एक्सचेंज रेट से
ये,
लिया है ना उसने, हाँ,
तो ये
की
उसकी वजह से
वैल्यू
हो
कम
गया।
होने।
तो ये पॉइंट
हाँ।
देख लीजिएगा, ठीक है। तो
ठीक है।
आई बैग लीव
जी
सोहेल
नहीं
भाई।
नहीं, नहीं,
जी
आपको मैंने जो जनरल कहा था कि एनएफसी पे जो आपने इतना काम किया,
जी,
इंडिपेंडेंटली आप और जो
देखिए,
पार्टिसिपेंट्स को
मैं
जरा
बताता हूँ आपको, मैं
अपना
आपको बड़ा
कीजिए।
फ्रैंकली बता रहा हूँ कि आपके पास, आप इसको इस तरह समझ लीजिए कि
हम्म।
अगर मैडम ये भी आप देखिएगा कि पिछले 5 साल के अगर आप बजट देखें, तो
जी।
फेडरल गवर्नमेंट का जो 42.5% का एफबीआर के टैक्स रेवेन्यू में से शेयर है, और उसके बाद जो नॉन टैक्स रेवेन्यू है, नॉन टैक्स रेवेन्यू में सिर्फ दो मेजर आइटम है। एक
जी।
पेट्रोलियम लेवी है,
जी।
जो इस वक्त 79 रुपीज अ लीटर है,
जी।
और दूसरा जो है वो है स्टेट बैंक का प्रॉफिट,
जी।
ठीक है। तो ये दो चीजें जो है ये नॉन टैक्स रेवेन्यू में आती हैं, और हमारा जो टैक्स और नॉन टैक्स है, ये मिला के, आई एम
हम्म।
स्टार्टिंग विद फ्रॉम 2020, जब मैं स्पेशल सेक्रेटरी फाइनेंस था, उससे लेके अब तक हम बेयरली अपना इंटरेस्ट एक्सपेंस पे कर रहे हैं। दैट
बिल्कुल।
इज वाई आईएमएफ ने एक टर्म रखी है, प्राइमरी सरप्लस।
जी।
आप इसको जरा हाईलाइट करें कि प्राइमरी सरप्लस का मतलब क्या है। प्राइमरी सरप्लस का मतलब यह है कि आप अपनी सैलरी, अपनी जो टैक्स और नॉन टैक्स है फेडरल गवर्नमेंट, उसमें से इंटरेस्ट एक्सपेंस पे करने के बाद उनके पास कितना बचता है, जो बचता है
अच्छा।
दैट इज अ सरप्लस। पिछले 2 सालों में 2022 23 में और 21 22 में तो हम प्राइमरी सरप्लस भी मेंटेन नहीं कर पा रहे थे, क्योंकि जो हमारा टैक्स रेवेन्यू और नॉन टैक्स रेवेन्यू था उसको जब हम मिलाते थे तो इंटरेस्ट एक्सपेंस उससे बढ़ जाता था। अब सवाल ये है कि क्या ये चीज इन फ्यूचर क्योर हो जाएगी? नहीं हो सकती, क्योंकि मेरा
सही।
इस साल फिर 7,000 अरब का फिजिकल डेफिसिट है, तो मैं सात
जी।
हजार अरब का के ऊपर जो टैक्स है वो इंटरेस्ट एक्सपेंस है वो और बढ़ जाएगा। सो एनएफसी अवार्ड इन इट्स प्रेजेंट शेप हैज रेंडर्ड फेडरेशन अनसस्टेनेबल, नॉन फाइनेंशियल, इट्स नॉट फीजिबल टू रन। किसी भी वक्त हम कोलैप्स हो सकते हैं। तो हमें एनएफसी अवार्ड अगर करना है तो अच्छा, मजे की बात ये फिस्कल पैक्ट में एक और भी चीज है कि जी प्रोविंसेस जो हैं, आपको पता है प्रोविंशियल, मैडम आपको पता है प्रोविंशियल डेट की फिगर क्या है?
मैं ये सब मैंने नोट्स मेरे पास लिखी हुई है, मैंने नोट्स सब ये
इसमें
डेटा
लिखने की
निकाला
जरूरत ही
है।
नहीं है, इसमें लिखने की जरूरत ही नहीं है, इसलिए कि डोमेस्टिक डेट चारों सूबों का
जीरो है
डोमेस्टिक
वो
डेट
नहीं है
जीरो है,
जी।
जो जीरो है,
स्टैंडर्ड
और जो
जीरो है।
और एक्सटर्नल डेट जो है वो 3 या 4 या 5 मिलियन डॉलर है, जो कि ऑन लैंड होता है,
हाँ सर,
जो
लेकिन इसमें तो
ईएडी
जीरो आ
देती
रहा
है।
था
और वो
मेरे पास, हाँ,
जी जी,
एक्सटर्नल
तो
डेट।
अब सवाल ये है कि अगर प्रोविंसेस का डेट जो है वो जीरो आ रहा है, ठीक है,
जी।
और
हम्म।
फेडरेशन का डेट इतना ज्यादा है,
जी।
तो इसका मतलब ये है कि प्रोविंसेस सरप्लस में चल रहे हैं, और वो
जी।
जो कि है, ठीक है ना।
कई साल में
इस आईएमएफ
सरप्लस भी
प्रोग्राम में भी
आया है।
लिखा हुआ है, इस आईएमएफ प्रोग्राम में भी लिखा हुआ है कि प्रोविंसेस शुड मेंटेन अ सरप्लस ऑफ 0.5% ऑफ जीडीपी। तो
जी।
उनको कहा गया फिस्कल पैक्ट में कि जी आप अपने जो एक्सपेंसेस हैं सोशल सेक्टर के, लाइक बीआईएसपी, ये तो आप खुद दें, एंड प्रोविंसेस
सही।
आर नॉट प्रिपेयर टू गिव इट। सो
ओके।
एनएफसी अवार्ड में सबसे बड़ा जो अब इशू है वो ये है कि प्रोविंसेस अपने कितने बर्डन जो है वो शोल्डर कर सकते हैं, दैट्स
सही।
इट। एंड
ठीक है।
दिस वे, अगर आज हम 7th एनएफसी अवार्ड का जो फॉर्मूला है उसको रेप्लिकेट कर दें, ट्रस्ट मी फेडरेशन विल गो बैंकरप्ट।
ओ।
ओके, मैं आपको एसडीजी डेट बता रहा हूं,
सही सही।
जी,
ठीक है।
मोहसिन साहब, अपना बिफोर आई लेट यू गो, आई हैव वन क्विक क्वेश्चन। ये मिस सफिया ने भी इंडिया की एग्जांपल्स दी हैं। इंडिया में 42% है स्टेट्स का जो शेयर है, अराउंड 42%। अच्छा, उनके अगर देखें तो रेवेन्यू और नॉन रेवेन्यू, टैक्स रेवेन्यू दोनों मिला के 42 ट्रिलियन है इंडियन रुपी, जिसमें से 14 ट्रिलियन स्टेट्स को जाता है। हमारे आपने बताया कि जी सिर्फ दो हैं नॉन टैक्स रेवेन्यू के सोर्सेज, पेट्रोलियम लेवी एंड स्टेट बैंक प्रॉफिट्स। इंडिया में क्या काफी ज्यादा हैं उनके नॉन टैक्स रेवेन्यूज?
आई एम श्योर, आई एम श्योर होगा। देखिए इसमें उसमें आपका जो है वो एफडीआई भी आ जाता है, उसमें आपकी जो आपके कैपिटल इनफ्लोज और उसमें जो इस तरह की चीजें हैं वो भी आ जाती हैं, बट आई हैव टू गो एंड सी के एग्जैक्ट उनकी डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन और कलेक्शन कितनी है।
ये क्योंकि मॉडल उनका भी आजकल जो है 16th एनएफसी हो रहा है, तो वहां भी बहुत ज्यादा डिबेट जो है वो चल रही है। एक ये बताइएगा कि पेट्रोलियम लेवी जो है उसमें आपने बताया कि 78 रुपए पर
79 है।
79 है। ये ओएमसी कंपनीज का जो प्रॉफिट मार्जिन है
वो
वो
इसके अलावा होता है, वो अलग अलग है।
लेकिन उसको वर्कआउट जो है वो इंक्लूडिंग पेट्रोलियम डेवलपमेंट लेवी करते हैं या आउट ऑफ दैट?
मैं चेक करके आपको कंफर्म कर दूंगा।
बिकॉज दैट इज ऑल्सो इम्पोर्टेंट कि जी अगर उनका प्रॉफिट मार्जिन,
समझ गया,
व्हाई शुड दे हैव अ प्रॉफिट मार्जिन ऑन पेट्रोलियम डेवलपमेंट लेवी?
लेवी ऑल्सो, बिल्कुल।
लॉजिकली तो उसको नहीं करता, लेकिन बट दिस इज एक्सीलेंट। थैंक यू वेरी मच मोहसिन भाई, आपने बहुत
ओके, थैंक यू बॉस, थैंक यू, खुदा
वक्त
हाफिज, अस्सलाम
निकाला।
वालेकुम।
तो आप चलिए, तो फिर इंशाल्लाह अपना भी कैच अप, एंड प्लीज
थैंक
डू
यू,
गाइड मिस सफिया इफ शी
तो
गेट्स बैक
हाँ,
टू यू।
ठक।
बिल्कुल ठीक है,
थैंक यू
थैंक
सो
यू,
मच,
बाय,
आपने मुझे
खुदा
बहुत
हाफिज।
अच्छी तरह गाइड किया मोहसिन साहब, थैंक यू सो मच।
Okay, now this is good that we had Mr. Mohsin with us. And now our next presentation is from Mr. Zulfiqar. Zulfiqar, are you ready for the presentation?
Yes, sir. I'm audible.
Oh, yeah, बिल्कुल you're audible, और मिस शीरीन भी हमारे साथ है ना? Yeah, I saw her message. She
Yeah,
is already with us.
I just am off camera so that presentations and everything get here without connection getting in the way. So
That's excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Zulfiqar. Over to you, but kindly restrict yourself to 5 to 7 minutes, please.
Yeah, thank you. So my slides are visible?
Yeah.
Okay, so good afternoon. Thank you to SPRC for the invitation. And today I will present findings from my paper on social policy financing in Pakistan, focusing on the role of NFC allocation and provincial expenditure patterns. Pakistan continues to struggle with the low social spending despite repeated reforms. Since provinces rely heavily on NFC transfer, an important question is whether these transfers actually improve social outcomes or simply expand budgets without impact. The NFC award defines intergovernmental fiscal relations, while the seventh NFC increased provincial shares. Provinces remain fiscally dependent and face weak incentive for revenue generation. Okay, so this paper asks 3 questions. Do NFC transfer raises social spending? Do they reduce poverty and inequality? And if not, why? A brief clarification on expenditure treatment. The analysis does not treat all recurrent expenditure as non-development. Recurrent component directly linked to service delivery, such as wages in education, health, and social welfare, are included as part of effective social spending. The concern arises where recurrent expenditure is absorbed by administrative overheads, which limits poverty impact despite higher allocation. So these are the trends on the graph. So okay. And while NFC transfers, while NFC transfers are associated with reduction in poverty, the magnitude is modest and varies across provinces. Punjab and Sindh show relatively stronger responses, while KP and Balochistan exhibit weaker and more volatile effect, suggesting that institutional capacity and spending composition matters. A significant share of funds is absorbed. A significant share of funds is absorbed by administrative costs, rigid expenditures, and debt servicing. Weak provincial tax effort and political constraints further limit effectiveness. The policy implications differ by audience. At the federal level, NFC design should strengthen performance incentive. Provinces need to focus on efficiency and revenue effort, while oversight institutions can play a stronger role in monitoring how social funds translate into outcome. In conclusion, while financing constraints remain important, the evidence suggests that policy direction and institutional design ultimately shape how resources flow and whether they translate into meaningful social outcome. And thank you so much. And I welcome questions and discussion.
Thank you very much, Zulfiqar, and I really appreciate you have created a space for discussion by being very concise and brief. And before I request Ms. Shirin Gul Sadozai for her comments, I would leave a question to my friend Dr. Saeed Akhtar Shah to respond after Ms. Sadozai's review, that as suggested by Mr. Zulfiqar, if the oversight of spending, social policy spending by provinces is given to the federal government in the name of ensuring outcome-based allocations, how would it impact the provincial autonomy? So I would come back to you, Mr. Akhtar, and it's over now to Ms. Shirin Gul Sadozai.
Thank you so much, Dr. Safdar, and thank you, Zulfiqar Saab. I actually really enjoyed reading the paper, and I have to say that the fact that you had taken the depth of analysis that comparison 2000 to 2023, I think that's very rich data. And as you have also put in your conclusion, it's something that can be built on by other, policy analysts and researchers, depending on what angle they're taking. I see that you've already taken some of my comments, even though they came quite late to you. So I really appreciate you picking those up as well. Just a few things in terms of it's interesting, Dr. Safdar, that you started with the political economy of the whole provincial and federal autonomy and the juxtaposition there, because my sense was that in the paper maybe some link to the 18th Amendment and what it does, because you see what we're doing is that when we're doing the panel data from 2000 to 2023, from 2000 to 2010, the functions at the provincial level were very different after the introduction of the 18th Amendment. So just even if it's a list of, what was before and what was after in terms of once the legislative lists changed, I think that legislative subjects would be useful to see what now are the functions after the 18th Amendment as well, because the 7th NFC as such happened before the 18th Amendment came, if memory serves me correctly. So it was done on the basis of a different dispensation. The dispensation changed later on. So I think some of that will add to the richness of the very rich data set that you've already analyzed. Other than that, I think a few things that you have recommended, some of those things already have international experiences. For instance, in terms of performance grants, one example that I can think of, because I'm working there currently, is the Philippines. So they do they call it a merit-based system, where and they do have own resources and they do a lot of taxation at the local level, as you may know. So that's why their different local government units are very, very different when it comes to the level of financial resources that they have, and their performance-based grant by default is then linked with the local government unit that is able to do more things because they have more avenues for that revenue collection. So sometimes, those kinds of, even with the best of intentions, equity and all still have to be aligned with what kind of policy implications would be there. So I think a few, if you can look into, if you have the time to look into some international experiences and see how to also balance the performance-based grants with the principles of equity and all, that will also be really good. Finally, just in terms of when we're talking about what kind of a poverty impact a certain expenditure had. So you had health, education, and social protection. I think we have to also, like you said, policy direction will determine financing. We have seen that previously, for instance, we know that, when we were setting the poverty threshold initially for the Benazir Income Support Program, for very practical, pragmatic reasons, it was finances which set the threshold. It wasn't really the threshold, the poverty cutoff was because that was the envelope available at that time. And that's exactly why poverty-based programs or poverty-targeted social protection programs are popular, because they can work within fixed budgets. So I think those kinds of what that does is if we are looking at, and here I'll come into that a bit of the larger debate as well, which is that it doesn't matter whether we are giving through the NFC award or we are expanding the vertical program as the vertical program. The thing is, if it's a narrowly defined program, the impact will remain narrow. If we are targeting 20% of the population, we cannot expect huge poverty impacts, right? And then if we are talking about specifically in the kind of climate-related issues that we are facing, we are looking at our ability to actually have that responsiveness within our at least social protection systems. So with a narrow-based program, horizontal expansion will always be a challenge. We saw that in COVID. We've seen that in the floods. It will always be a challenge. So what do we do there? With a broad-based program, obviously, it's easier to just do vertical expansion, and only vertical expansion will help. But if we have narrowly defined programs, and we only have the option of quick vertical expansion, that would sort of impact how much we are able to help. So I think from that perspective, then one of the things that was in the paper as well was around pensions. I think if we look at it was interesting to see, maybe some of you are already familiar with it, but there's quite a recent paper earlier this year, because we're still on 31st December. So earlier in 2025, there was a paper by the World Bank called Participation in Pensions in Low and Middle Income Countries. And actually in there, if you see that, they have presented social pension as zero pillar for an effective social policy impact or social protection impact. And basically the idea that a lot of you, including Dr. Safdar and Dr. Aliya, that I think I've heard on different forums, I've read your work that you've talked about it, which is integration. How do we integrate the contributory scheme and the tax finance social pension? I think there is now a building a more and more of a consensus. And this paper actually does talk about that social pension will take care of the worker in the informal economy as well. So these are some developments that I think we should all keep view of. Obviously, Zulfiqar, these are beyond what your paper is, so please don't take this part of it as something that you can't be that granular on everything that touches social policy. But just to sort of bring this into discussion as well, that I think for us it is at the end of the day, I think we have to be very clear, when we say that this something is a poverty reduction policy, are we addressing the symptoms or are we addressing the causes? Because if we keep it poverty targeted, in my view, it is addressing the causes. It is a very good initiative because it addresses it is addressing the symptoms. It is a very good initiative because you have to have that symptomatic relief, but in the longer run, you have to address the cause. And that's why when you talk about life cycle-based social policy, or specifically life cycle-based social protection, then you are looking at a place of bringing the contributory schemes and a social pension together, so that there is a broad-based system whereby at least one age group that we know is more at risk will be covered. Similarly, if we look at something like education, how does education work? We know that studies across the world show that your home environment, specifically in the primary school years, is a big determinant of how successful a child is in the school. And again, child benefit is something where we see that parents are able to invest in simple things like games, simple things like books. And of course, there is a whole, set of evidence even on psychosocial kind of improvements within the home with these kinds of benefits. And last but not the least, in terms of the life cycle thing, if we look at the evidence on elderly pension, irrespective whether it's contributory or non-contributory, it actually improves both nutrition outcomes as well as education outcomes for grandchildren. So much so that there is a paper by Duflo for South Africa, where grandparents who were getting pensions as opposed to those who are not, there was a height difference of 3 to 6 centimeters. I think it was centimeters, but there was a height difference recorded in terms of just getting a social pension, not getting a social pension, which is a directly sort of shows you that nutrition and everything is improved if you give them money. So I think those kinds of experiences, those kinds of examples, we can also learn from. These are things that we are now unfortunately struggling with, but. Just to sort of, again, for me, sometimes things are bringing them back to the basics. So I'm not an expert on the NFC, don't pretend to be an expert on the NFC. But I think as we take social policy forward, the questions are the same for me. And I obviously, this is a debate, so everybody can come in and say it. And for me, it is allow me to use the term late capitalism. So I think it's time to sort of see what the relationship between market, state, and society is in late capitalism. Are we still looking at the state when it comes to to market? Is the state-market relationship still based on being a regulator? Or is it only to absorb market failure, as we've seen in 2008, and we continue to see in different other examples as well? When it comes to state and society, are we still talking about the state as the duty bearer? If we are talking about the state as duty bearer, then I think we need to sort of get out of some of the debates. And again, I'm not talking merely of Pakistan. I see that in some of the other countries that I also work in, which is we keep talking about public goods and private goods without realizing that there are also rights. And rights are not a good. A right is not a good. It cannot be categorized as a public good. It cannot be, definitely not be categorized as a private good. But rights are rights. And that sort of brings me to sort of something that all of you know much better than I do, which is when we go back to our constitution, because we're talking about health, education, and social protection or social welfare, when we go to our own constitution, fundamental rights, we look at right to dignity. For me, health and social protection are very clearly covered by the right to dignity, which our constitution protects. Is our social policy in line with that? Is our policy direction in line with that? Is the NFC award in line with that? All of these things are questions. And of course, the right to universal education, we know is very, very much enshrined within the fundamental rights. And why are they important? They are important because these are equalizers, right? We've seen these as equalizers, work as equalizers for us, as well as for other countries as well. So I think if you look at that equity, whenever we look at that equity debate, we have to have that question of us. I mean, there are the NFC award is obviously absolutely experts sitting there and they know what they're doing. But I think as our role, a bit of coming back to the basics and fundamentals and saying, look, we cannot only have the market and society we are missing that role of the state. That is my view, which is happening a bit everywhere. So this is a bit on coming back to the basics and doing that. Just on one more thing, which I had here, because we keep talking about TVET as a great solution as well. And I think that it comes to the same thing as education. And I'd really like to learn more in terms of, the experts sitting here. But for me, as long as we're not saying anything is a silver bullet, for me, it's, again, if you're saying that we're linking people to markets, we're linking people to, there's a very specific context where TVET works. So one of the examples that all of you or some of you may be familiar with, and is often quoted, is the example of, or the program in Colombia, which was a great success in terms of TVET. So if you look at that program, one, it was only in urban centers. B, it was a program whereby there was a mandated internship or a mandated attachment with employers in between the training. So these are elements, you see, we forget that these elements also have to be included. And see, it was, it continued. It had a certain qualification criteria as well in terms of the education that you had and background you had. So these were some of the things that were there. And then there was obviously a control group and there was a treatment group. So ultimately, in the control group, 32% of those young graduates or people in that age group were able to find employment. Whereas in the treatment group, those who actually went through the TVET and everything, 36% got employment. So yes, it was a huge success, but the target had to be small. It was 4% more than the control group. So the point is, and similarly, if you look at the UK, they recently had a big program where their target was that 1.5%. Their target was, I think, 5% or something in terms of getting employment for younger people. They actually managed to do that for 1.5%, meaning by that you can't do things like TVET for the kind of youth bulge that we have. We have to do it. So social policy by default is an integrated system. So we need our education, we need our TVET, we need our, obviously health is underlying and universal across the thing, but we also need to view it from that, and that is why we need to view it from that life cycle approach, because so many things have indirect impact on lives of people who are living as families. I'll stop here because otherwise I'll go a lot into, I've tried to keep myself away from social protection a lot this time around, but it's a matter of habit that I go there. But again, Zulfiqar Saab, really enjoyed reading your paper and happy to discuss more also in terms of, because I also gave some comments on data visualization, because I feel your data is much more, and some granularity in terms of provincial comparison and specifically data visualization around that would really enhance what you're trying to communicate. And finally, your recommendations, if they are audience specific, if you're audience specific in the recommendation, that again would really tighten your recommendation, because all the work is already there. It's just a matter of packaging it a little better and a little more. And obviously that's never done in the initial drafts. That's always done in the last finalization of drafts. But overall, I mean, congratulations on lots of good work done in that paper. I really enjoyed reading it. Thank you.
Excellent. Like always, I can't thank you enough, Ms. Shirin, for your interventions. Back to basics. You see, I mean, but I actually, when I started writing background note for this, I wrote the sentence that the social policy is on the crossroads. But then I said, wait, it's not on the crossroad. It has gone on one road too far. It needs to come back to be in the crossroads where you still can make decisions. And that's what our effort is, that we tell the people in the committees of NFC that, look, it's time to pause and get to the basics. And the primary question that you have raised through different angles, and I thank you really for that, is what is social policy not an integrated phenomena and system? Still, would we continue dividing it into provincial subject and federal subject, and saying that social policy is primarily the provincial reserve? So thank you very much for raising excellent issues. We would build on that. And I think your guidance to Zulfiqar is also important, but for us also, this is being recorded. And I think in our publication of these 4 papers, we would have detailed comments of the reviewers also integrated with the publication. Perhaps you could further expand them also. I have this little comment on your use of the term late capitalism. You mean in terms of old age or what? Because in old age, you have some.
Now that you've told me that it's recorded with like, a little bit of lighter note to everyone present who's been listening to all these, as long as we're not saying senile capitalism.
Yeah, for me, I mean,
in terms of what is also called hypercapitalism, obviously, that where is wealth concentrated now, and all I mean, we all know that. The point is that even if we don't use that kind of terminology, I think what we're seeing around us is that, for whatever reason, the role of state, society, and markets is being redefined, and we need to sort of redefine that for us as well in Pakistan.
Understand that. You see, one little example before I go to Mr. Akhtar. In India, for example, they don't give a population that heavy a weightage, number one. Number two is that the southern states who have managed to reduce their fertility rates and populations, now they say that for us, a better indicator for a claim on resources is the old age welfare. Now, that's the vision which I think we also need to. Another important, I think, lesson that we can have from India is that their commissions are not really tied into this provincial union. They call it state union rivalry. These are permanent commissions, independent, having their own secretariats. I mean, the current commission is headed by Panagria, who is an academic sitting in US, for example. So there, I think. There are a lot of ideas which are coming up in this, but Zulfiqar, thank you very much again for raising this question that are we nearly interested technically in expanding budgets without any care for impact? But again, if what you are proposing is that the Federation should have the oversight or should have to do with the outcomes, Akhtar, how would it sit with the vision of the provincial autonomy in the 18th Amendment?
Thank you, Dr. Sohail. As far as the provincial autonomy is concerned, there is certain misconception. Let's go back when this 18th Amendment was not there. NFC was already there. The 7th NFC was perhaps in 2009. And 18th Amendment was done in 2010. Before the 18th Amendment, we had the federal list, the concurrent list, and whatever was left, that was the residue. But there was nothing left in the residue because everything was in the concurrent list. Even in that time, because your focus is on the social protection, elementary education, higher education, health, sports, all those were, the budgets were provided by the provinces. The health sector, the universities were set up by the provinces. The only step which was taken under the 18th Amendment was that, as far as NFC is concerned, that it had given protection to the 7th NFC award, that in future, the shares given to the provinces cannot be reduced. That is the only constitutional protection in that. Rest it's the same. As far as the formula is concerned, as you mentioned, you have given the. Yes, please. Are you here?
Yeah. We lost you, but you're back. It's okay.
Okay. So let's go to the centralized model of Ayub Khan, because we are discussing social protection. At that time, in his 10th year, Ayub Khan was celebrating. Ayub Khan was celebrating his decade of development. There was a economic growth on the basis of social utility of greed propagated by Papanik, and it was said that there would be a trickle-down effect while Ayub Khan was celebrating. Why? Because the trickle-down effect never occurred. So, and now we have to make a comparison. We have the Islamabad capital. Let's take Peshawar and Islamabad capital and conduct a study how far, as far as the peripheries are concerned, the population, the ordinary population living there, even the ministerial population, why they are doing second jobs. Is there social protection within? So I would say the provinces, the provincial government are as good as the federal government. What is the performance of SPR? Why they are lagging behind? Why we are performing? Why we could not manage steel mill? Why we could not manage railway? So question can be raised regarding the performance.
Mr. Zulfiqar. Mr. Zulfiqar, are you with us? Zulfiqar, are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Akhtar, we have heard you. The main point is that performance and outcomes, are they better in the federal government that we should give it to them? Zulfiqar, do you have a quick answer to that?
Yeah, okay, but right now there was some issue, so I couldn't heard the full.
Yeah, I'll repeat. You in your recommendation, you say that the evaluation of the outcomes of social policy spending in provinces should be with the federal government. Mr. Akhtar is saying that is the performance of federal government inspiring enough that we think that provinces are not managing as well as the federal government is managing.
Yeah, actually, there are some debates regarding this issue, but we can settle that. The thing is that there should be a performance-based incentive. So provinces should show some performance when they get the funds from the federal government, and there should be some mechanism to monitor.
Yeah, perhaps, Zulfiqar, you're talking about the Indian model where they have special grants, and when the special grants are given by the union, they do insist on outcome-based evaluation. I think that is one good suggestion which the next NFC can have the provision of special grants from the national level. Awais, are you with us?
Excuse me, one point just. Yeah. We have, as per the constitution mechanism, we have the National Economic Council, where these things can be debated. But again, the question is whether at the federal level, one provision is that the equitable distribution of resources and economic development. My question is the federal government doing that?
या शाह साहब, जैसे मैंने पहले कहा कि हम आपके साथ अलहदा से सेशन करेंगे. दिस इज गुड दैट इन योर इंटरवेंशन द मेजर क्वेश्चंस फ्रॉम द प्रोविंशियल पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू हैव कम अप, सो वी वुड हैव डेडिकेटेड डिस्कशन ऑन दैट.
What is the performance of SIFC? उसकी वो फेडरल गवर्नमेंट कितने साल हो गए?
Yeah, as I said, I think the connection is getting weak. We would sit with you separately and we would raise all these issues. This is good that you have raised these issues which are being discussed in the provincial capitals. Now it's over to Mr. Awais. Dr. Mahmood, you are with us. Ji, walaikum assalam. Go ahead, Mr. Awais. Thank you very much for contributing a paper.
My pleasure, sir.
Ji, please be, try to wind it up in 5-7 minutes,
problem.
okay?
Not at all, no problem. Hope my screen is available with all of you people.
Yeah, it is indeed. Thank you.
Sir, thank you very much for you and your team providing me a chance and an opportunity to come here. So my topic is very interesting, and that is basically inclusivity. The important topic, because Dr. Shirin talk about very well about it. I believe that, and I wish that my paper would also be shared with her as well for her comments on it. So, inclusivity is basically a big topic. जो कि मैं समझता हूँ कि if we talk about the tax system in Pakistan, but again, which is a big challenge in Pakistan, is that the latest report of the ILO shows that approximately 60% and more of the Pakistan economy is undocumented, with a more concern that plus 70%, 75% of the employees or the workforce, they are also out of the tax system or the social protection system. So that is a big burden, which is basically an inexclusivity of the tax system in Pakistan. However, there is a $1 million question that why, if there is an inexclusivity and undocumented economy, that why our tax revenue is basically raising and above and increased around 72% from the period of 2022 to 2024-25. That is from 6.8 trillion to 11.7 trillion, which is a big thing. However, the contrast is that our economy is shrinking, that GDP growth from 6.8 to 6.18 to 3.04%, which is an alarming thing for us. इसी में अगर हम लोग थोड़ा सा इसको एनालिसिस करते हैं, तो there is a heavy burden on taxes in our system or in our taxpayers, जिसमें approximately 235 rules there are in our tax system जो कि इसको overburden कर रहे हैं, और complex system जो है वो इस वक्त चल रहा है. And that is the ratio with the tax to GDP. अगर आप इसको 2018 से 23 तक देख रहे हैं, there is almost just one click of to 2029, 19 sorry, जहाँ पे 12% के पास गया, लेकिन approximately stagnant है या downfall की तरफ है. However, हमारे regional partners जो हैं, India that is around 17% के पास है, Turkey 23% के पास है, Indonesia around 19% के पास जाता है. ये हमारी इसमें सिस्टम्स में आता है. इसी तरह से अगर हम लोग SME की कंप्लायंस कॉस्ट को इसमें देखते हैं, तो दैट इज बिग, अराउंड 4 लाख to 5 लाख एनुअली. उसको डिफरेंट जो स्नैपशॉट्स हैं उसमें अपना टैक्स कंप्लायंस कॉस्ट जो है वो देनी पड़ती है, इन रिकॉर्ड कीपिंग, इन विदहोल्डिंग टैक्स मैनेजमेंट, ऑडिट रिस्पॉन्सेज और कंसल्टेंसी फीस की तरफ से. That is why I propose in this paper that an incentive-based framework जो है वो होना चाहिए, और इसको हम लोग इंट्रोड्यूस करते हैं with a different tier-based in जो है categorization of the SMEs और enterprises की तरफ से, और फिर उसके बाद हम लोग इसको लिंक करते हैं with the compliances को with the social protection, which is the key, जिसको डॉक्टर शीरी ने भी elaborate किया with the elderly pension और old age benefit की वजह से. तो वो हमें नजर नहीं आते हैं। और फिर एक शिफ्ट होना चाहिए फ्रॉम द इन्फोर्समेंट टू फैसिलिटेशन, जिसकी हम लोग अक्सर बातें तो करते हैं, एफबीआर भी करता है, बट वो इन्फोर्स हो नहीं पाता। सो दैट इज द बेसिक फ्रेमवर्क जिसको मैं प्रपोज कर रहा हूँ यहाँ पे। एंड द नेक्स्ट स्लाइड जिसमें हम लोग इसको थोड़ा सा कैटेगराइज करके आगे चल रहे हैं। सो इन दिस स्लाइड आई हैव बेसिकली ब्रोकन डाउन द होल सिस्टम इन द 4 डिफरेंट पार्ट्स, दैट इज द कॉपर टू डायमंड। और इसको मैं इंक्लूसिव इस तरह से कर रहा हूँ जिसकी वजह से हमारी टोटल इकोनॉमी इसमें शिफ्ट हो सकती है। वाई? अगर हमारे रिसेंट सेंसस आप देखते हैं तो उसमें हमें इस वक्त पता चलता है देयर आर अराउंड 7.1 मिलियन एंटरप्राइजेज और द बिजनेसेस इन पाकिस्तान जो इस वक्त डॉक्यूमेंट हुए हैं इन स्मीडाज रिपोर्ट्स, इन पाकिस्तान ब्यूरो ऑफ स्टैटिस्टिक्स रिपोर्ट्स। अगर आप उनको देखते हैं उसमें इंडिविजुअल्स भी हैं बट उसमें बिजनेसेस भी हैं। लेकिन इन कंट्रास्ट अगर आप देखते हैं तो हमारे पास SECP के रिकॉर्ड के ऊपर there are only 239,000 companies registered in shape of private limited or IPOs or other things. और जो FBR और जो है रजिस्ट्रार ऑफ पाकिस्तान, यहाँ पे हमारे पास अराउंड 250,000 के पास एंटरप्राइजेस हैं। दैट मीन्स 90% ऑफ द जो हमारा सिस्टम है उसमें से 7.1 की वो कंप्लाइंसेस ही नहीं है। तो इसका मतलब है इनको ऑन बोर्ड लेने की जरूरत है। एंड दैट इज व्हाई I propose the first slab, that is the copper one, just to onboard each and everyone who has the business ID or the CNIC or the simple one-pager business documentation, उसको आप register कर लें with the very lowest documentation। और उसको मैंने अपने पेपर में डिटेल में डिस्कस भी किया है। फिर उसको आप ग्रेजुअली आप ग्रेजुएट कीजिए towards the silver, which is a partial workforce registration, because जैसे मैंने पहले कहा कि हमारी 75% प्लस तो जो वर्कफोर्स है वो तो रजिस्टर्ड है ही नहीं, नॉट इन द टैक्स बट आल्सो इन द सोशल सिस्टम में भी नहीं है, और उनके बेसिक रिकॉर्ड में नहीं है। तो इस वजह से उनको पार्शियली फिर उस रजिस्ट्रेशन की तरफ जाया जाएगा। और द थर्ड वन विल बी द हायर कंप्लायंसेस, दैट इज द गोल्ड कैटेगरी, जिसके अंदर हम लोग उनको हायर कंप्लायंसेस की तरफ लेके जाएं, उनको ई इनवॉइसिंग की तरफ लेके जाएं, विद होल्डिंग टैक्स की तरफ लेके जाएं। और द फाइनल वन वुड बी द डायमंड द कैटेगरी, जिसको हम लोग फुल डॉक्यूमेंटेशन और ESG कंप्लायंस एंड टॉप इंसेंटिव्स की तरफ देखते हैं, वो होना चाहिए। और इन्हीं के अगेंस्ट हमारे पास जो इंसेंटिव्स हैं वो आगे इसमें दिए जाते हैं, जिसकी वजह से वो लोग बड़े आराम से आ सकते हैं। फॉर इंस्टेंस अगर हम लोग कॉपर की बात करें तो यहाँ पे हेल्थ कवरेज जो है वो एक बहुत बड़ा इशू है, वो यहाँ पे बिल्कुल नहीं दिया जा रहा। नॉट द एम्प्लॉयज बट द एम्प्लॉयज के पास भी ऐसी कोई जो प्रोपोजिशन है वो नहीं होती है। तो दैट इज वाई वहां पे ये इंसेंटिव जो है वो इसको दिया जाना चाहिए। फिर इसमें हम लोग ये देखेंगे कि डेटा शेयरिंग जो है वो बिटवीन डिफरेंट गवर्नमेंट एंटिटीज, लाइक अगर मैं EOBI से डेटा लेके FBR के पास जाना चाहता हूँ तो वो इसके कंप्लायंसेस के इशू आते हैं। सेसी के पास कोई डाटा नहीं होगा, पाकिस्तान ब्यूरो ऑफ स्टैटिस्टिक्स एक अलग डेटा स्ट्रीम लेके बैठा होगा। सो इसको हम लोगों को एक सिंगल डिजिटल रजिस्ट्रेशन पोर्टल की तरफ लेके जाना पड़ेगा, जिसको ऑटोमेट करना पड़ेगा ताकि तमाम इंस्टीट्यूशन जो है वो इंटीग्रेट कर सकें एक जगह के ऊपर। अच्छा, इसका इम्पैक्ट जो है वो डेफिनेटली ये आएगा कि अगर इस वक्त हम लोग 7.1 मिलियन की जो SMEs हमारे पास जो ओवरऑल नजर आती हैं वो एटलीस्ट उसके बर्डन ऊपर आ जाएंगी, और उसकी वजह से हमारा जो टैक्स बर्डन जो इस वक्त रजिस्टर्ड रजीम के ऊपर आता है, वो चाहे सैलरी बेस है और या वो बिजनेसेस हैं। लाइक आप पिछले कुछ सालों में देखते हैं, एक साल के अंदर अंदर हमारा जो बिजनेस टैक्स रेवेन्यू है वो तकरीबन 131% इंक्रीज किया है। इसी तरह से अगर हमारा जो सैलरी बेस्ड टैक्स बर्डन है वो तकरीबन 206% इंक्रीज किया है सिर्फ ये 2 सालों के अंदर अंदर। तो दैट मीन्स कि हमारा रेवेन्यू तो बढ़ रहा है बट सिर्फ उन्हीं के ऊपर जो कि ऑलरेडी इन द सिस्टम्स हैं। बड़ी अच्छी बात हुई थी इस बजट के अंदर जहां पे हमें पता चला था कि फर्स्ट टाइम एवर जो नॉन फाइलर्स हैं उनको एक्सक्लूड किया जा रहा है और इंक्लूड कर दिया जाएगा एज अ फाइलर के तौर पे। बट एट द सिस्टम एंड के ऊपर जब बजट अप्रूव होने जाता है तो अगेन सम ऑफ द पॉलिटिकल मैन्यूवरिंग वहां से पता चलता है कि अगेन वो जो नॉन फाइलर है वो एग्जिस्ट कर रहा है। सो दैट इज वाई इसकी वजह से हम लोगों को इसको एक ब्रॉडन टैक्स बेस जो है वो सामने नजर आएगा, और इसकी वजह से हमारी जो SMEs हैं उसकी कंपेटिटिवनेस जो है वो इम्प्रूव होगी, नॉट फॉर द डोमेस्टिक इकोनॉमी बट फॉर द इंटरनेशनल मार्केट्स एज वेल। अच्छा, इसकी जो है डिफरेंट हमें जो थियरी ऑफ चेंज है वो नजर आती है व्हेन वी स्टडी विद डिफरेंट मॉडल्स। हमें पता चलता है कंप्लायंसेस जो है वो जितने ज्यादा उसके ऊपर राइज करते हैं, उसकी बेनिफिट जो है वो भी उतने ही विजिबल होने चाहिए, बट अनफॉर्चुनेटली ऐसा हो नहीं पाता। अगर हो तो इसकी वजह से हो सकता है। इसी तरह से लोअर कम्प्लेक्सिटी, अगेन दैट इंक्रीजेज द कंप्लायंसेस, और ट्रस्ट बेस्ड क्रेडिबल जो कमिटमेंट है वो एक रिड्यूस करेगी हमारी इनफॉर्मेलिटी को, क्योंकि अभी हमारे पास ट्रस्ट ही नहीं होता। कोई बंदा जो फॉर्मल है भी, उसके ऊपर भी उतने कंप्लायंसेस हैं, बल्कि नॉन कंप्लायंसेस से ज्यादा उसके ऊपर, इनफॉर्मल से ज्यादा उसके ऊपर कंप्लायंसेस आ जाते हैं। ब्राजील ने इसको बड़ा सिंप्लीफाई किया, इसको सिंप्लीफाई करके उसने सिर्फ 4 इयर्स के अंदर 25% जो उसकी फॉर्मलाइजेशन है उसको इंक्रीज किया। इसी तरह से इंडोनेशिया ने भी इसको 30% के पास इंक्रीज किया। अच्छा, सबसे जो इसके कंस्ट्रेंट्स हमें नजर आते हैं कि जी पोलिटिकल इकोनॉमी है तो उसके कंस्ट्रेंट्स क्या हो सकते हैं। एलीट जो रेजिस्टेंस है, वो एक बहुत बड़ा बार है। अगर आप थोड़ा सा स्टैटिस्टिक्स को देखें, हमारी इंपोर्ट एक्सपोर्ट जिसको होना ही टोटल फॉर्मल चाहिए, होता यह है कि अगर इंपोर्ट होती है, बट उसको वहां पे तो कंप्लाई किया जाता है, लेकिन इंपोर्ट के साथ साथ जो उसकी वेंडर स्ट्रीम है वो सारे की सारी हमें वहां पे बड़ी एविडेंट नजर आती है कि जी ठीक है, आप यू शुड रिमेन इनफॉर्मल, और आप हमें ज्यादा टैक्स उसको पे करते जाएं, क्योंकि वो हिडन इकोनॉमी है, वो कैश बेस इकोनॉमी है, तो उसकी वजह से हमें वो रेजिस्टेंस जो है वो नजर आता है। इसी तरीके से जो पोस्ट 18 अमेंडमेंट हमें जो है वो चैलेंज नजर आया, उसके अंदर प्रोविंशियल और फेडरेशन के अंदर बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है। डॉक्टर साहब ने बड़ी अच्छी वहां पे एग्जांपल दी कि देयर इज अ 0% टैक्स कलेक्शन जो है इस वक्त प्रोविंसेस की हो रही है, लेकिन उनके अंदर शेयर ऑफ जो उसकी है उस एनएफसी के अंदर, वो उन्हीं उन्हीं का सूबों का ही ज्यादा चलता रहता है। सो कंक्लूजन के अंदर आई वुड लाइक कि जी हम लोग इसको थोड़ा सा जो है वो बेनिफिट करें फ्रॉम शिफ्ट फ्रॉम द एक्स्ट्रा एक्टिव टैक्सेशन से डेवलपमेंट टैक्सेशन की तरफ। हमें पता होना चाहिए कि कौन से टैक्सेस कहाँ पे इस वक्त लाए कर रहे हैं। फॉर इंस्टेंस, मैं आपको अपनी एग्जांपल देता हूँ। आई वाज वर्किंग विद द प्लानिंग कमीशन ऑफ पाकिस्तान, मेरा सैलरी का 23% टैक्स के अंदर कट जाता है। 23%, दैट मीन्स 23%, वो मुझे कहीं पे पता नहीं चलता। ना मुझे मेरे फादर की वजह से अगर मैंने कहीं पे हॉस्पिटलाइजेशन होनी है, मेरे पास कोई कवरेज नहीं है। मेरे पास किसी तरह की कोई बच्चों की एजुकेशन की कोई कवरेज नहीं है। कोई एल्डर बेनिफिट जो है वो मेरे पास वहां पे नहीं आते, बिकॉज वी आर द कॉन्ट्रेक्चुअल बेस एम्प्लॉयज। सो दीज द लिमिटेशन जिसको हम लोग कहते हैं कि लेके जाएं, और फिर इसको लिंक करें विद वेलफेयर इंसेंटिव और ट्रस्ट बिल्डिंग की तरफ। यकीन कीजिए, अगर हमारी एसएमईज को अगर आप एक ट्रस्ट दे दें कि जी आपके ऊपर कोई इस तरह का ऑडिट नहीं होगा, कि आपके ऊपर जो इन्फोर्समेंट है वो आए और आपका रिकॉर्ड उठा के ले जाएं और आपके प्रिमिसेस को ताले लगा दें। आई कैन अश्योर, जो कि मेरी अभी रिसेंट आईएलओ के असाइनमेंट के ऊपर भी मेरी डिफरेंट एसएमई से बात हुई है, so they are much willing to give and they pay the taxes and the even social protection जो taxes हैं, social taxes हैं, उसके ऊपर भी वो पेमेंट देना चाहते हैं with the contribution of the employees as well, लेकिन वो हो नहीं पाता। सो दैट इज द कोर थिंग कि अगर हम लोगों ने उसको ट्रस्ट बेस लेके चलना है तो वो ज्यादा बेहतर है। और टियर फ्रेमवर्क जो मैं ऑलरेडी आपको एक्सप्लेन कर चुका हूँ, इसमें मैं चाहूंगा कि हम लोग आगे से मूव करें और अच्छे तरीके से हम लोग जो है वो इंक्लूसिव टैक्सेशन की तरफ जाएं, rather than still we are remain undocumented जी। And these are the some data sources जो हैं वो मैं already share कर चुका हूँ with the reports of the IMF, Federal Board of Revenue, the World Bank's मीडिया की इनकम टैक्स compliance studies थी, तो उसके ऊपर इसमें आया है। So this is all about from my side, sir. I'm ready for the review and the question answers.
Excellent. Wes, your paper is an excellent paper. A building block. You see the challenge. अच्छा, इनफॉर्मल इकोनॉमी को हमारे नॉर्मली नेगेटिव पेजोरेटिव टर्म्स में किया जाता है, whereas for us at SPRC, and we can have further conversation on that, that's the real economy.
Exactly.
And now the new phenomena which is happening is that you have the word of finance, which is increasingly disconnected from the real economy, इन टर्म्स ऑफ लेट्स से प्रोजेक्ट फाइनेंसिंग जो है, ये आपके जो इनफॉर्मल इकोनॉमी का एंटरप्रेन्योर जो है वो बैंक से प्रोजेक्ट फाइनेंसिंग नहीं लेता है। हमारे साउथ एशिया में दैट्स लोएस्ट, हार्डली 5% ऑफ प्रोजेक्ट फाइनेंसिंग कम्स फ्रॉम बैंकिंग, बट दैट अगेन इन द स्केल नॉट फॉर एसएमईज। वही कमेटियां, वही डैडीज मनी, वही रिमिटेंसेस, वही। तो आप ये देखिए कि ये क्या आप डॉक्यूमेंटेशन को एक ड्राइवर बनाएंगे ग्रोथ ऑफ एसएमईज का, या आप उसमें जो है वो वर्क को एक बुनियाद बनाएंगे डॉक्यूमेंटेशन का।
Identifying that there are different tax compliers and we try to treat them differently, because when you differentiate, you are kind of creating an incentive for them to behave accordingly. Now, I'm not saying that this is a bad approach, and you have rightly identified that different countries have actually taken advantage of that. But from a tax policy perspective, in the long run, it is better that there has to be a simplified regime which is for everyone, so that the businesses don't feel a push that they have to remain in the first category and don't elevate to the second. Because if you look at the proposal which you have also made, it shows that as you grow, you will be challenged with more documentation. You have to adhere to different kinds of compliances, which to the ones which are at the lower tier are practically not required. And that is also one of the facts which you have mentioned in terms of our business climate, in which the corporatization is not there, because they are fearful not just about taxation, but again the documentation, the compliances which they have to do as being corporatized as compared to staying afloat. But I totally agree with you that this is the only solution which we have to move forward. And what we have recommended does have that weight, that this is how we can move ahead. And just 1 week ago, there was also a kind of a policy which was introduced by the SME, almost similar kinds of proposal that registered that these would be the set of benefits which you can careful with this sector, because unfortunately or fortunately, this is protected in the form. You have rightly mentioned the health, education, the clean drinking water facilities, severages, and so many other things. So the tax morality basically starts from where the state is developing their extraction power based on a social contract in which they are delivering certain services against which they are charging to it. Now, the state service delivery arms are basically the provinces, whereas the revenue collection arm, unfortunately, is the federal government. So there is a disconnect in terms of who's actually responding to the demands of the people, to which the people are then going to feel compliant and they are going to oblige by paying taxes. So what I really feel is that the time has come that the provincial governments also has to become part of this whole revenue collection exercise, not just by helping the tax enforcement. That's one part which they can play a critical role, which has also picked up by certain provinces. Like just 1 week ago, the Bilawal Bhutto in a meeting said that they are willing to cooperate with the federation in terms of increasing the tax base and creating potential taxpayers which otherwise was not there as a support. But at the same time, this also reflects this, that we need to increase the pie, and the pie can be increased if the government on the other side starts delivering to its promises. It starts making the budget more responsive to the needs of the people. And that basically brings into our discussion, which is about the theme of the today's as well, where the social protection actually also embeds in it. Because if that is something where the population-centric planning actually starts with, where the people really feel protected and they can take leverage and they can move out in terms of looking for the more efficient and better options to learn as well as to deliver. So from that angle, your paper is very rightly written, and I think it's the need of the time that we have to improve by creating sense of tax morality. That is where the provincial governments also needs to come in, and at the same time improve the compliance by reducing the barriers to comply. And this is very heartening to see, listen to you, that the SMEs and other sectors are willing to pay taxes if the compliance cost is less. But again, for how long they would be willing to be compliant, because as they move forward, They have to think about, as you have mentioned, taking on board the withholding regimes, taking on board the other kinds of documentation and other requirements which the enforcement or the compliance actually comes along with the higher rates and other stuff. So that is what we have to actually entangle. And to me, in the long run, the only solution is that the simplest form of taxation regime with lower cost of compliance as well as applicability is the right solution. These temporary solutions can lead us toward that path, but ultimately there has to be an equitable and fair system for all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mahmood, for your very comprehensive comment, and congratulations, Mr. Awais. Your paper has been appreciated by Dr. Mahmood. I think one of the major challenges that we have is to do with the conceptualization or definition of SMEs itself. Now, the new 4 categories which has been introduced by the latest policy still puts less than 150 million as the micro enterprises. Now, if the opportunity cost or if the choice is to pay social security, old age, work contribution and the tax, I would personally say that in the beginning, the SMEs should be encouraged to pay some social security contribution.
Exactly.
Some, not whole of it. You see, I mean, in the beginning, in the 60s, when the social security was introduced, state was paying a part of that. It was later on during the 70s as a populist move, the government of the day said, no, that would not happen and blah, blah, blah. And that's what precisely in India it is happening. So initially, I think for the micro enterprises and for the self-employed micro enterprises, the social security contribution needs to come from, let's say, federal government, which basically would mean that work is going to be the centerpiece of the social security system as a right, which has to be the most important criterion of the National Finance Commission. So look at that aspect also, that it's not necessary to talk about the taxes always. These contributions, and by the way, there's one decision by Supreme Court which equalizes the workers' welfare contribution as a tax also. The same kind of morality that we are talking about. But I think this is an extremely important debate for the NFC award to consider. We should not be, as I said earlier, be obsessed with the percentages and center and the provinces and horizontal and vertical. As the previous presentation say, what happens to that money? Dr. Hidayatullah, are you with us?
Dr. And we have basically take that of your point, which is basically a social security protection to the SME. There's an entrant point for the SMEs to come into the formal economy. We have mentioned this in our ILO report, which is basically, I was taught that Dr. Mahmood was talking about SMEDA's policy. That was a national roadmap and basic incentive for the formalization of economy in textile and auto part. And we placed that of the suggestion, जो आपने अभी बिल्कुल अभी raise की है, that there should be a tri-party sort of a contract, employer, employee, and the federal government or the government, so that उनकी तरफ से contribution आए, or that could be an entry point of registration.
Yeah, I think that is a useful track.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Awais.
Right.
Dr. Hidayat, it's over to you.
There has been much talk about the horizontal transfers and vertical transfer. Actually, the basic purpose of 18th Amendment was to empower the local government and improve their efficiency. And improvement of the efficiency was only that there is a localization of decision making. And the channel for that was NFC. But when we look at the initial research, most of the research are focusing on that whether there has been increase in the transfer or there has been decrease in the transfer, and it has not been linked with the outcomes or there has been no logical or intentional effort to link those transfer with the outcome. What we have tried in our research to find out whether those transfer have resulted in some changes at the ground level or not. If you can go to the objectives of the research, please. So that's why our research objective one is effects of per capita transfer of NFC in provincial HDI in Pakistan between 2010 and 2030. The second is whether the relationship between transfer and HDI is mediated by the capacity to govern and significant shocks, especially pandemics and floods. And the third was to use rigorous research and use a couple of alternative models to test our objective 1 and 3. And the 4 was to identify ways and means policy implication to recalibrate for next 11th NFC cycle to better align the transfer. So these were the 4 objectives. To achieve those objectives actually, and these objectives are actually linked with the research gap. If you can go to the research gaps slides, please. So in the research gaps, we have identified fiscal decentralization can significantly enhance inclusive development. But it is only possible when the provision of institutional power, grassroots responsibility, and productive resource management, but needed further scientific inquiry. Moreover, in the absence of underlying condition, even more fiscal transfer cannot lead to significant social improvement. And that persists in the case of Latin America, India, and Indonesia. Henceforth, there is a general agreement that fiscal reform can lead to inclusive development unless they are coupled with structure governance augmentation. So we have linked our objective with these research gap, and our theoretical framework is actually grounded on the classical fiscal federalism theory and the theory of public sector by Musgrave and Shaw. And then to further add to this, we have also tried to capture that whether there is an allocation of fiscal responsibility at different level of government with the aim to ensure a sense of allocation efficiency, macroeconomic stability, and reasonable allocation. If you can move please to the variable description part. Variable description, please. So we have tried to channelize our objectives and then the research gap to these variables. First is NFC per capita, the second is governance, fourth is health expenditures, sixth is education expenditure, poverty, literacy rate, and then we have added 2 shocks. One is COVID and the other is floods. So our generalized model is that how HDI has been affected by these variables and keeping in view the moderating or effects of COVID and flood shocks. So these are the descriptive statistics of our variables, which are showing that how these variables have been spread through 2010 to 2023. And these are the results in table 1. If you can go please to table 1. Table 1, you can see that per capita NFC transfer is concerned across the provinces. Okay, so in table 1, you can see there is a huge disparity across the provinces as far as per capita NFC is concerned. And even in case of Balochistan, you can see it is on the higher side, which is quite deceptive. Then when we are going for the long run relationship, we are seeing a visible, or we can see significant effect of governance, poverty, and rate of literacy. Then we have repeated the same kind of analysis. If you can go to table 4, when we have used short term within the provinces dynamics by using fixed effect model. And finally, when we have used random effect and fixed effect, then we can see a totally different story. So if you can come to the discussion slide, I can elaborate those results. Persistent discussion slide, please. Persistent insignificant NFC coefficient across estimator is one of the most important results. It suggests that sheer volume of unconditional transfer within the same year does not automatically convert into measurable improvement in the composite social development, but it allows for fungibility and poor targeting. The second part is that transfers that are not tied with specific performance or investment objective can be fungible and used for non-social purposes. And the third part of the discussion is that by contrasting positive coefficient of actual health spending support that the idea what is spent matters more than what is transferred. If you can go to the second part of the discussion slide, please, next slide. So strong, fully modified OLS governance coefficient, but it disappears in fixed effect, indicates that between the provinces, governance differences, persistence, institutional strength. So to sum it up, that the NFC outcome can be linked with the quality of institutions, especially how strong the governance at the institutional level is within the province. If we are having strong institution at provincial level, then we can have better outcome. But if we are having weaker institution, despite in case of Balochistan, the per capita NFC transfer is high, but because of weak institution or institutional quality, we are not having those outcomes. If you can go to the policy implications straight away. So
yeah, please try to wind up, Dr. Hidayat.
I am trying to, because it's a very long paper and 5 to 7 minutes are very short time for this. So in policy implication, reforms in policy should cover NFC based allocation specifically to health and basic education geared toward quantifiable objective research, enhance provincial public financial management system in order to enhance the rate of budget execution and reduce leakages, increase of provincial level administration by lightened budget, important community-based monitoring system, and show responsive financing mechanism incorporating climate and pandemic risk into the resource allocation. And with this, I will conclude my presentation. At the end of my presentation are your comments and my response to that. Thank you. If you have any questions, those are most welcome.
Thank you very much for making an so you, Dr. Ali, for your comments, please.
Ji, can we get the presentation removed from the screen? Okay, thank you. I also have reviewed paper on time to review it properly, and I submitted my written comments to be forwarded to the authors, and I'm glad that I see 80% of my comments having been addressed in the revised version, which is a very good indication of the whole research process behind this SPRC conference. However, I still do not see the variable social development index being discussed in the kind of detail that would really make this paper very strong, because I think the thrust of this paper is the linkage between social development and NFC award. And I will talk more about this linkage at the end of the comments, because I think that is an important, very important issue raised during this conference. So apart from that, and a thorough editorial check of the paper to make it, in conformity with academic and research quality standards, I think the paper does fill a very important gap in the literature on fiscal federalism in Pakistan, because as I see it, what this conference is trying to do is it is trying to invoke the spirit of social policy in the context of fiscal federalism in Pakistan via a discussion of NFC, and bridge between the NFC award and public service delivery, which, and I'm sure Dr. Safdar would, agree with me, is behind the constitutional spirit of the NFC award. Because if the NFC award is not, leading towards a better scenario of the public service delivery, then it is not actually fulfilling the constitutional requirement behind the National Finance Commission award. So I think this paper, if it is strengthened with the detailed comments that I have given, and some of them have already been carried out, will indeed lead to opening this whole debate. This, and I think the second paper that was presented, they are very good complementarity. They have a very good complementarity in terms of this issue between the link of social development and the NFC award. And so that is, my hope that this paper is polished to a point where it becomes a useful input that has been kickstarted. But I was earlier looking, and Dr. Zafrul Hassan is in the audience. He and I were both together at an event on the NFC award, where the NFC Commission member from Sindh and the KP minister or advisor on finance to the chief minister, who's a member of the NFC, National Finance Commission, were also there. And I raised this issue as to what kind of evidence does the National Finance Commission use in terms of discussion and debate regarding the vertical and the horizontal share distribution of revenues during its sessions. And I got a very disappointing answer that, the data is not to be trusted. The evidence based on data which is not trusted is not helpful at all. But I think we need to move beyond this debate. And the Pakistan Bureau of Statistics representative clarified that, the data that is produced by the National Statistical Organization of Pakistan, PBS, has its shortfalls, but on the whole, that is the data that is used for the whole macroeconomic framework of Pakistan. That is the data which is used for, calculating all the fiscal deficits and the revenue mobilization and everything. So I think an important contribution of this And with your permission, Dr. Safdar, I'm now going into the second phase of giving my impressions regarding this conference today.
Sure.
That an important contribution of this conference today is to raise the level of discourse on the NFC award beyond the provincial shares, which are again being debated post the seventh NFC award. I mean, there's a strong vibe that maybe the federation, the federal government wants the share of the provinces to be altered in view of certain circumstances, but that is not for us to decide here. It's up to the NFC commission to have their debate. But the point is that if that debate does not, for example, take meaning from the kind of results that have been presented, especially the result on governance and the result on the contribution of the NFC award on social development index, even though I still feel that we have not unpacked the SDI in the paper as much as it should have been, still there is a strong result that is coming out that, you know, there is really no strong association. Then what is really the spirit of the NFC award if it's not delivering the kind of public services that the quantity and the quality of public services that now UNFPA has declared Pakistan as the 5th most populous country in their announcement today. So we have to see the NFC award much beyond the debate on the revenue sharing formula and the weights of the indicators. Of course, those should be modified, but modified under the influence of evidence that is flowing in from research that is like the one that has been produced and presented today. So I hope that Dr. Safdar, SPRC as a think tank will have the necessary inroads into the NFC process. And I think, I'm taking advantage of my age and experience in saying this, that I think the nomination of the independent members of the NFC, that is the National Finance Commission itself. We can't say anything about the ministers, but the independent experts, at least one of the criteria for them should also be that they are grounded in evidence-based knowledge regarding the impact of NFC in their own provinces. At least over the years, we have a sufficient time series now of analyzing both, which this paper does also, the short-term and the long-term impacts. And that would also reduce the complexity of the myths surrounding NFC as to what exactly can you expect. So I'll stop here with the hope that this discussion will go a long way in inducing the social policy context into the NFC discourse in Pakistan, and also to a more wider appreciation of what the NFC award really means, apart from this tussle between the federal government and the provincial governments regarding shares and the vertical dimension and the criteria. And I think that the debate on the criteria, we did not get a paper, receive a paper on revisiting the horizontal dimension of the NFC, which is the criteria, which right now is also very heavily skewed towards population. But during the discussion, we did discuss, for example, like introducing new parameters like social protection spending and so on. So maybe since the working groups will be debating that, unfortunately, without the presence of a strong evidence-led database and a cross-country comparative analysis, I think SPRC has a huge responsibility in the wake of this conference webinar to convey all these concerns to the Secretariat. And one positive fallout from that event was I think the 30th anniversary of the Social Policy Development Center in Karachi, in which we were having this debate, that the finance minister, he had regretted to attend the event, even though he had confirmed it first. He did invite the board members of SPDC, and he promised that any recommendations by think tanks and civil society would be welcome. So taking a cue from that, and Dr. Zafrul Hassan will stand witness to that, I think building on that is a possibility that, these recommendations will find their way in the discourse on the NFC at the official level. Thank you very much.
Dr. Aliya, thank you very much. I think you have summed up the whole discussion.
गुजारिश करनी है, मैं रिस्पॉन्ड कर सकता हूँ डॉक्टर साहिबा के कमेंट्स को?
चलिए जल्दी से कर लें, दे दें इनको एक मिनट,
जल्दी से कर लीजिए.
This is a natural process and it's good.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Thank you for your valuable comments. But at this time, we are using HDI as a proxy for social index, but we are working on that. So one thing is that, and the second thing which you have mentioned, that using population as a base for distribution of NFC. Actually, we are experimenting on that as well. We are having some simulation kind of experiment with that how suppose if Punjab would be Balochistan and Sindh would be KP, and then and if the bases will be changed, so how those provinces will be having different situation as far as development.
Point taken, Dr. Hidayat. But then if you are using HDI, then write HDI. This is also one of my comments. Do not write SDI because it's very confusing. Okay.
Yeah. So that's later on. After your comment, we have revised it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I think this is good that we are having that interactive session. I was just saying as my concluding remarks that, and I must thank Dr. Aliya that she summed up the whole discussion. We are honored to listen to your comments, Dr. Aliya, that the conference today has really thrown up those issues, those challenges, and social policy consideration, which must be considered by the committee and the commission. And as you have recommended, we would work only with these and other discussants to develop these papers, because we intend to bring it as a publication, which then would be easier for the committee members or commission members or even for the Minister of Finance. And what my current thinking, as I said earlier, so that we would quickly have sessions with provinces, and we would come up with a more comprehensive policy and but to take that important critical moment for us to raise the level of debate and choose on the table with my training sociology and period term of violence where is that the dominate their language also in such a way that the dominated feel comfortable within those categories which have actually disadvantaged or which have actually marginalized. So let's get out of these technicalities, shares and horizontal and vertical, and ask more basic questions that can our social policy move towards a more universal, right-based, public service-oriented model using the increased revenues. Otherwise, with these technical debates, we would continue with so-called targeted, market-mediated, and politically discretionary welfare. In our provinces, one can imagine that why provinces are even happy with the deadlock, because we can see a rapid emergence of a new politics of social welfare in our provinces, where now the welfare is being used to launch new schemes every other month. So their appetite for more resources is understandable because they have this view that perhaps this would help them, and it's veering towards the charity side. So this circular relationship between the regional social policy consideration that you talked about in our constitution, for example, which made us follow a certain use pattern of resources and its distribution along the multiple tiers of governance, that's national, provincial, local, and the possible impact of new formula. If we do not radically revisit or rather resist the traditional social policy objectives, which should inform different committees working to finalize the new formula, we would miss a huge opportunity. So it's a common cause for all of us, for the contributors of the papers, discussants, participants. I have a lot of experts present today with us, Dr. Zafar, Humaira, Mr. Akhtar, many, Mr. Jami. So it's a common cause. Ma'am, I'll sit with you to develop a kind of a strategy to grow this process further, and you kindly help us interface with the committees and the commission, so that we at least bring the social policy consideration of a radically revisited social policy. Like in Awais paper, we have seen that, one way to formalize SMEs is through the social security, perhaps less by taxing and more through right-based, work-based social security. So we at SPRC also take it as an opportunity. And as I said in the beginning, that for us, this end of the year conference helps us formulate our research agenda for the next year. So me and my team, whom I must thank also, Hajra, Alishpa, Kashfa, for setting it all up, and again thank the contributors and discussants. This is beginning of the beginning, and it's a common cause to take these issues forward, and we would stay in touch with all the participants now. We have their data, but let's hope a new community of people who would like to have Pakistan social policy revisited and contribute to that. It's a common cause. This is your own platform. So again, I thank everybody who has shared today and wish a very happy New Year to all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.